couple more things to add about the epidermis. Once again, it's the outer layer. It's the most superficial layer, pretty thin compared to the dermis, the large part of the skin. We're going to have several different cells throughout the epidermis. We're going to introduce that very shortly and their functions. And then once again, their tissue type is the stratified squamous epithelium. And remember, we talked about the difference between keratinized stratified squamous and non-keratinized last chapter. In your skin, you're going to have that protein keratin to make this extra strong, right? Because we want protection. Versus areas like your esophagus or the inside lining of your mouth, you don't need as much protection. It's not as tough as your skin, so that's going to be non-keratinized. So we're going to see the word keratin a lot this chapter, and you can see some of the cells, actually the most popular cells in the epidermis, are called keratinocytes. So if you had to guess what those do, you'd be right, they make keratin. On this slide, we're going to introduce 5 different types of cells that are involved with the epidermis. And what you're going to see is all 5 of them have very unique different functions. But at the end of the day, when you sum it up, all of these 5 unique functions are all for protection in one fashion or another. So let's talk about these different ones in order. First, we have the basal cells. And the basal cells are your stem cells. Now remember what a stem cell is from our tissues chapter, last chapter. Stem cells are cells that are very good at mitosis. Now what I'm doing here is I am circling at the very bottom of the picture. I'm drawing a few purple circles, just giving you some examples of what basal cells look like. They're these little square cuboidal looking cells. And what they're going to do is basically make new skin for you. So whenever your skin dies, we start making new skin, right? Therefore, we don't run out of skin. So these are the stem cells. And this is why you constantly are regenerating skin. And if you get a tan or if you cut yourself, give it a month or so and it will more than likely go back to normal unless the damage was severe. So those are called basal cells. Next cell are keratinocytes. Keratinocytes are these cells that you see kind of in the middle of the picture. I'm going to put them in green. You can see with them with the little nuclei everywhere. These are all keratinocytes. And their job is to basically protect you. These cells are made just basically full keratin, and what we're actually going to do is we're going to purposely kill the live cells in our skin and our epidermis, and how we're going to do that is we're just going to pump them full of keratin. And basically keratin is going to kind of take over the entire cell to the point where the nucleus and the mitochondria and the Golgi apparatus no longer work. And therefore, if those organelles aren't working, they die. So that seems kind of counterintuitive, right? Like, why would we want to kill our own cells? Well, let's think about it. Yes, the nucleus, mitochondria, all that stuff is good for us, but if our main goal is protection, wouldn't we want the strongest stuff that we can possibly make in that area? And that's what we're doing. So these basal cells make your skin cells at this bottom layer here. And then as new cells are made, those cells get pushed up. And then as new cells are made, those cells get pushed up. And then you see where I'm going here. Basically, we have this pattern where the older the cell is, the closer they become to the surface. And as we get to this surface area, our only job is protection, because when a bug climbs on you and bites you or stings you, or when you scratch yourself, you want protection on your skin. You don't want to bleed every time you touch your skin. So that's the purpose of the keratinocytes. Let's move on to the Merkel cells. The Merkel cells are nerve cells inside of the epidermis. And you can see this weird looking blue cell at the very bottom right corner of the picture. That is a Merkel cell. And what they're responsible for is detecting touch, specifically what we call tactile touch or light touch. We're going to have a different type of cell in the dermis that detects kind of a deep touch or pressure, but the Merkel cells are light touch. So this is the wind kind of blowing against your hair. This is a little ant crawling on you. This is you wearing your watch. It's kind of scratching you a little bit. You just put a shirt on in the morning and the tag on the collar is kind of itching you. That light touch sensation are the Merkel cells telling your brain, hey, something's touching my skin. Now, as I mentioned, the theme is protection, right? How do these things protect you? Well, you want to be able to feel stuff crawling on your skin, right? Especially if you're outside in the woods or something. If a tick jumps on you, hopefully you feel that tick jumping on you so you can swat it or, get rid of it, flick it, right? So this is still a form of protection. It's just to let your brain know, hey, what's going on? Next, we have the Langerhans cells. The Langerhans cells are the only cells that you can't see in this image on the right, but I have a really cool picture coming up for you, and I'll show you what they look like and what they do. Basically, these are your defenders of your epidermis. These are basically, they're not lysosomes, but they work like lysosomes. They're just big macrophages is what they are. They just kill things. They just eat things. They're kind of like this octopus-looking structure with these tentacles, and the tentacles grab on the things, and then they just swallow it up. So they eat bacteria. They eat any foreign particles in your skin. They even just eat flakes of dead skin that are just kind of swimming around. So this is the immune part of your epidermis. So when you go outside and you scrape your knee or you scrape your elbow, it's not a 911 emergency. Yes, your skin is meant to protect you, but you have a backup plan. You have actually several backup plans. And one of your backup plans are these Langerhans cells. So when you scrape yourself and kind of lost a couple layers of skin, you're okay. You're not going to die of a septic infection, hopefully, right? And then last but not least are the melanocytes. And the melanocytes give you your skin color. They give you your hair color. They even give you your eye color. And you can see a melanocyte in this picture, circled in red. And basically, this is just a pigment. And everybody's a little different, really, depending on your parents. And your grandparents kind of dictated this for you. But if your parents live near the equator, somewhere in South America or Africa or Southeast Asia, you're probably dark skinned, you probably have dark hair, you probably have dark eyes. If your parents and grandparents and great-grandparents lived in Canada or Norway or Russia, somewhere like that, you probably have lighter skin and you might have lighter colored hair, lighter colored eyes. It just depends on your genes. It's a big part of this. So we'll talk more about all of these in just a little bit. Now, one more thing I forgot to mention is the melanocytes. How do those protect you, right? The basal cells protect you because they make new cells. Keratinocytes protect you because they're tough. Merkel cells let your brain know what's going on. Langerhans eats things. How do melanocytes protect you? Well, the more melanin you have, the darker your skin, the darker your eyes, the more protected you are from the harmful UV radiation of the sun, right? Somebody with light skin, such as myself, I have to be careful when I go out in the sun. I have 6 members in my immediate family. 2 of them have already been diagnosed with skin cancer in my lifetime because my family has very fair skin. Somebody who is of South American, African descent, you don't really need to worry about that. You have really, really dark skin. You're kind of protected. It's very, very rare to get skin cancer if you have dark skin. So protecting you from the harmful UV light. Sun rays are good for you. Go out in the sun. Just don't overdo it. Let's dive into a little more detail with all of these epidermal cells. We're going to skip basal cells because we've already covered really the essence of them. They're stem cells, and what they do is make these cells, the keratinocytes. So keratinocytes, once again, very, very important because that keratin serves as our main form of protection. This is by far the most abundant type of cell in the epidermis. So out of all of these cells, the basal, the Merkel, the Langerhans, and the, what am I missing? Melanocytes, these are by far the most popular, the keratinocytes, all throughout your skin. And once again, keratin, very, very strong protein found in your skin, also in your hair and nails. And what it does, because it's so strong, it protects your skin and also waterproofs your skin. So when we take a shower or bath or jump in a pool or something, we don't swell up with water like SpongeBob or something, right? We need to protect, we need to have that barrier between the outside world and the inside of our body. So keratin helps with that. Now, as I mentioned, these keratinocytes are born thanks to those basal cells in that last layer, that bottom layer. And what happens is we purposefully kill our cells, if you will. And this process is called keratinization. And what we're doing is we're just pumping the cell full of keratin. And once again, all of those organelles kind of die in the process of this. But that's okay because it's really it's the outside layer of our skin. Its only job is to protect you. And this is the best way, number two, this is the best way to protect you, is to just make the cell really, really tough and hard. So by the time these keratinocytes are actually dead and they get to the very surface of the skin, they do change names. They're called corneocytes. And corneo just refers to, it means horn. And if you look under the microscope, a lot of times these structures at the very, very top next to the lumen, they just kind of have these little horns to them, these kind of just edges to them. So that's where they got the name from. So keratinocytes, main purpose, protect, because they're really, really strong. They don't let stuff in and out of your body. The Merkel cells, once again, this is the nerve cell in your epidermis, and we talked about they are really responsible for light touch. And you have this all over your body. You have this on your face, your neck, but specifically we have a lot of these in our hands and feet, which kind of makes sense, right? We need to know what's going on. Every time you take a step, we need to make sure that our brain knows where our feet are, right? And your hands need to be very sensitive as well. As we're typing and texting and doing all the things we do with our hands, it's good to have very sensitive nerve fibers in that area. Next, we have the Langerhans cells, and the Langerhans cells do have another name. They're also known as epidermal dendritic cells. And recall what dendrites are from the last chapter. We looked at them with the nervous system, or the neuron, and basically it's a cell and it's got kind of all these octopus spider leg looking things kind of branching off of that, and that's what we're looking at here. You can see some of these cells on the right that have these extensions on them. So once again, these kill things. They work with our immune system. They actually are a part of the immune system. These cells are born in the bone marrow, and then they migrate to the skin and they work as macrophages. They just eat things. So there are receptors pretty much on everything. Recall back in chapter 3 all those glycoproteins we talked about. And if your receptors don't match the body's receptors, or if something's receptors don't match with part of the body's receptors, we're going to try to eat you or kill you, right? And that's unfortunately where autoimmune conditions happen, where the body doesn't recognize its own parts of the body, so it attacks it. But that's what's happening here. So if something was to get in your skin, like a foreign object, your body's going to do the best it can, breaking that down and trying to destroy that, and that's the role of the Langerhans cells in the epidermis. And then we have the melanocytes, and once again, the melanocytes produce this pigment called melanin. And that gives you the color of your skin, hair, and eyes. And once again, it's protecting you from the UV radiation, the harmful UV radiation.